Well, it's not the draft. It's not reactions to the draft. It's buyers and sellers. And I think it's one of everybody's favorite podcasts of the year. So, it's one thing I am known for. It's called giving the people what they want. And that's what we're doing. We're here to give the people what they want. And if there's one thing that the people want, it's more of Bill from the Broncos and RJ from the Eagles. And it's more beard from RJ. I mean, the beard is back and it's a wonderful thing.
Thank you. Yeah, the mustache was a nice one-time thing, and we may do that later on. But back to the beard, and I feel a lot better.
Good. And Bill, how we doing?
I'm doing great, man. The Braves are in the World Series. I'm ready to watch them. Just totally wipe out the Astros. Those fuckers should never ever win anything ever again. I'm ready.
It's unfortunate that pretty much every team the Astros have played, I've had good friends who are part of the fan base like, oh yeah, don't worry, we're gonna take care of those fucking cheaters.
Yeah,
And, it's the Reds like, oh, those fucking
Yeah.
cheaters are going down. And now it's
Yeah.
like, so Atlanta, you gonna do this thing for us, or are we just gonna, walk around with a thumb?
honestly, I think it goes 7. I think it goes 7, and I honestly don't know. I don't know, but I'm just going to enjoy the ride. I haven't seen this as an adult, and I don't remember their 90s run. I was too young, so I'm going to enjoy it. I'm looking forward to it regardless, and I hope they do it. I hope they do it.
Yeah, agreed. Anyways, on to more topical things like our league. We're getting kind of close to the trade deadline here. So it's time to start going through the league and thinking about who are the buyers, who are the sellers, and who are the teams that actually are close enough that they could go either direction. So, speaking of going either way, maybe we'll start there first. AFC. Let's see. RJ, any team you kind of see still on the fence of whether they are out or in?
Well, I think the majority of the AFC East, they all have winning records. They all look like they are vying for some type of a playoff spot. So Dolphins, Patriots, Jets, kind of one of those things. I don't see the Patriots or the Dolphins selling per se. But the Jets could go either way. Out of the AFC, I think that Titans. That's about it for me.
Gotcha. Bill, any team in the AFC that you still see kind of on the fence, aside from if you aren't willing to say yourself, that's fine.
No, I will say this. Myself and Raiders are very on the fence. I think that he's gonna take the W out of this week between us, and he probably has a better shot than I do, obviously, at that point. But I'm confused with the Pats. Like, they did all that buying and now they're doing selling. I'm not really sure there what they want to do, but I don't think they're going to end up being bad enough or making enough moves to where they're going to be out of it.
I don't think he's necessarily selling. I think he's doing exactly what the Panthers are doing. Like he got Darnold. Now he's disappointed with Darnold, and he can like he will pair Darnold and a reasonable, like a good yet injured player for a real quarterback in the league, franchise quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, outside of that, I do agree with you on the Titans, but I don't really know about the rest of it. Like, at this point, you have to assume that the East just has 4 teams in. So I don't know what the rest of us are going to do, but I'd be very interested to see what the Ravens and Bengals decide going into the trade deadline, depending on where they stand.
Yep. No, I think you guys hit it on the head there. AFC West, I think, is slowly but surely trending towards the selling market, although they might be a little slow to get there. Patriots, I think it's more of just a redistribution of where the talent is. DJ Moore is a great asset, but again, he jumps in price, and spreading that out to other positions and potentially pick up a pick that you can use to add makes some sense. So I won't fault Pats for that. I think you kind of hit this the sneak team, but all three of us kind of said it. It's the Titans of they're going to win this week. The Texans are going to win this week. They're going to be a game apart from each other. If Titans can take the second one from the Texans, they're tied, and it's going to come down to points, where Texans has the big lead. So Titans basically has to make up 2 games unless they can start scoring a ton of points. Granted, one thing that helps you score a ton of points is Christian McCaffrey. Another thing that helps you, score a ton of points is availability. Speaking of availability, Matt, what the hell is going on with your technology?
Dude, my camera is absolutely shitting itself at the moment. It keeps connecting and then disconnecting, and my G Hub won't recognize it, so I can't hide this disgusting room that's behind me, and we're having a fun time over here. I think it's because the cord got caught in a fucking drawer, so it's all smooshed and not working properly now. So,
Well,
live with it.
luckily
So
we do this, and we don't do this to see how clean your room is.
Right.
That's fair.
Right. So to your point, Mike, with the Titans, McCaffrey doesn't come back till week 9, so there's really no way of knowing if it's going to make any difference.
Yeah, so again, he's realistically going to have to pick up, I'm going to say something in the level of 30 points a week to even up with the Texans, which I think is going to be a really tough putt. I know I was probably big up on Titans winning this division, but now that they've got to make up the equivalent of either 2 wins or about 200 points, like that's a much tougher thing to do. But I could see them obviously being one of the last ones to decide to be a seller and staying on the buy side.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, any team in the AFC you kind of see as one of the last holdouts of a buyer or a seller?
Like a holdout is in not doing anything.
Or
Does anybody?
I'm not sure which side they fall on of the
What side they
buyer or
fall on?
seller.
Yeah, not really. I think you guys have hit all of them that are like undecided on where to go with their team. I think there's some that should probably be more aggressive in their selling and aren't, or more aggressive in their buying and aren't. But that's just mostly because the AFC's turned into this kind of like, it's not as top heavy as we thought it was going to be to an extent. Like Bengals and I both look very beatable when it comes to actual playoff time. And honestly, between now and then as well, as the 3 losses for Bengals and my 2 losses show.
I mean, I do think with having the doubleheaders early again this year, I do like how the AFC shaped up, like coming out of them this year compared to last year. Last year it was kind of defined by week 4. We just knew who the playoff teams were. We knew who the playoff teams weren't, and it kind of just went that way. And we just had a pretty like typical like outcome where at least there's some undecideds this year. There's some people that do have a shot.
That AFC East is a fucking mess.
It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, I like looking at those records.
All right, moving over to the NFC. Any team here that kind of is on that fence of buyer or seller, or is it? I'd say it's probably a little bit more defined in the NFC. Kind of who are the buyers, who are the sellers, and if I've got my count right, we would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams exactly in the buyer side. So that being said, hey, I guess we got our playoff already.
I mean, I think Giants is kind of on that fence, like positive record, but wants to sell things.
Mm-hmm.
So like maybe he is defined in what he wants to do, but his record doesn't reflect it. Other than that, I agree.
Yeah, the Giants' problem is the pieces he'd need to sell to get like to dump scoring are not the pieces he'd want to sell per se.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like both of those linebackers, Okiriki and Warner, he wants to hold on to those 2 for sure. I mean, you may as well try and dump the corners, but like, I don't think losing corners is going to lose you football games.
Right.
So, I mean, maybe rest of season, if you look out and see who his matchups are, it could shift some. But at the end of the
Well, I mean,
day,
let's
like,
just also be frank. He's won 6 games. So there's currently 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 teams with fewer wins than him right now. Whether it finishes with that many teams with fewer wins than him or not, he's going to be picking outside the top 10.
oh yeah,
So it's kind of like, hey, yeah, I want to build for the future. But to your point, it's let's not sell pieces that are going to help me with, the future, because that doesn't make sense with this rebuild. It's not
Right.
like, I have a shot at a quarterback, or I have a shot at a no shit impact player in this draft. I'm going to have to be smart in picking the teams and grab the guy who's going to make the most sense.
Yeah, he's just like stuck in that weird purgatory. He's like battling the Bears and the Buccaneers for the 7 seed, and he either needs to make a decision to just tell himself he's not going to make the playoffs, or he needs to go for it and try to take one of them out. But I don't know that we're going to see that happen.
I think the problem is division mates. He's getting wins that he doesn't necessarily
unearned.
want. Right. Where like if he's in any other division, those are losses or like coin flips at best. Where like he's gonna run through us regardless of how he tries to thin out his roster.
I think he could look at moving one of those linebackers though, if he can get the right return. Because like realistically, sitting at like an early teen spot, you're looking at picking either like very low end, or not. I don't want to say very low end. The end of the premier offensive players, or that first linebacker, or that first D end, or the third or fourth D end, depending on how the draft shakes out with quarterbacks next year, and that pushing up other skill position players.
Yeah, it's not going to be the first D end.
Yeah, it'll be a couple D ends down. It could be the first or second linebacker though.
That's true.
Yeah.
So like depending on what he can get back for Okereke or whatever that dude's name is, Bobby, or like a Fred Warner, like if I was him, I would be searching around to see what is out there for those players. Not necessarily set on moving them, but just like feel it.
If you're gonna take offers, it's probably gonna be on Warner, who has the larger contract, rather than Okereke, who has the more reasonable contract.
I mean, he's made it clear to me that Fred Warner's not going anywhere. I mean that may
don't blame him at all.
But yeah.
No. So again, I think that one of the things, and I won't go inside baseball here, is we talk about, hey, some of these pieces need to get moved, and got to get value from them. Again, Fred Warner is a good young linebacker, so moving a piece like that is really tough to do. So kind of like when you guys look at something, we'll use Fred Warner as an example, because you know what, he's a well-desirable player, whether you're trying to build for now, build for the future, whatever. What value do you guys place on a guy like Fred Warner? That contract, that age, where he is in scheme. I know a lot of folk will kind of shudder at the idea of throwing a first for a defensive player. I would say is Warner a first plus kind of player, because that's always the challenge when we get to some of these things, is coming up with a price for some of these players. So just using Fred as an example, just kind of what happens when we get 4 different owners looking at evaluation here to see what a guy's going to be worth.
So I think there's like a certain group of linebackers that are like young, established, productive linebackers where I don't disagree with the idea of seeing a less desirable first round pick. That being like somebody in the top half of the league, like I don't care what pick it is, but a top 20 or higher, let's say. If that gets sent for a linebacker of that status.
All right, so RJ, you would say a playoff first would be a fair offer for Warner. And again, I'm not trying to put people on the spot. I'm not trying to say, well, now if Giants comes back and offers you Warner for a playoff first, you have to take it. It's more of if you're putting an evaluation on a player of trying to get them what the value would be, it would be a playoff first.
Right. I think like an early second to a late first gets like should get the deal done.
I agree. I think that we're coming up on 5th-year options here, and like myself, I have Rashaan Evans. Tremaine Edmonds is on the Browns, I think. He's coming up. Like, to me, they're going to be the same price range, right? I would expect a playoff first for any of those names, technically, just because of where the salaries are going to be next year, regardless. And they're very young still, but yeah, I think that a first would be a fair offer for Warner. I just don't know that he would just take that.
Right. I mean, and by all means, talk about the other side. If you had a guy like Warner on your team, would you take a deal for a playoff first, or would you kind of hold out saying, okay, I really need something in the teens or around 10? Like where like, and part of this is kind of the educational series of this is because it's easy for all of us to say, yeah, playoff second should do it. But if we wouldn't actually pull the trigger on a deal like that, then that's bad advice.
So the thing is,
go ahead.
It sounds really appealing, and it's probably like a fair cost. Until you come to the realization that if you're just going to replace that player with another linebacker, you're either going to get Patrick Queen or like William Gay.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's you could hit another linebacker that in 2 years is still in his early 20s, established, productive, exactly like the one that you just got rid of. Or you could have a guy that's still finding his way in the league.
Right.
Yeah.
It turns into a problem where like you trade Fred Warner for that pick and you're hoping that 3rd or 4th linebacker that you're drafting is Fred Warner.
Right.
Which the likelihood of that is incredibly low. So you run into a problem where like I in a fucking heartbeat would send that Washington first I have for Fred Warner if I knew it got accepted. I'd do that instantly. The other side though is that like that's not enough because you're basically paying, and not in Fred Warner's case because Giants didn't draft him. But in the case of like let's say it was a linebacker that was drafted that you're moving in this situation, that like not a Patrick Queen or maybe the Patrick Queen works fine.
Jerome
you're
Baker is another one.
Yeah,
He got moved for first.
Yeah, you're basically saying, all right, I can just do that again, and you're cycling firsts. But in like that case of Fred Warner, he's already on his 2nd contract, so you're not going to run into the case of like you're just dodging that 5th-year deal basically, or that 5th-year option. You're just like you're giving up already found gold for possibly finding gold. So I think in a case of a player like that, you have to get more than what you initially spent to draft him back when you move them.
Well, there becomes just like the problem with like trading 4 picks or trading away picks is the like hitting on it. And,
right.
Like once you've made a selection with that draft pick, you've automatically lost value.
Mm-hmm.
Because then it's like, is this player worth a 1st-round pick?
Yeah. And I guess in a lot of ways you would do that because you're worried about your salary cap situation, like going from 10 down to 1.5 or 2. That's one thing. But even then, I would be very, very hesitant about whose first it is. Like if I'm looking at, anyone who's in the top 3 seeds in either division or in either conference, I'm probably not taking it. I would want something like the Rams or like the Jets. Somebody who's like potentially like 1st round out, 20 to 23, somewhere in there, just so I can have more leverage to move it up if I need to later. But it's hard to look at any of those names and be like, yeah, I'm gonna give it to Vikings or Washington or Atlanta or anybody and be like, yeah, they're going to win. Why would I pay $132 for this? But at the same time, I guess there's also like the concept of contender luxury tax to ask for like more than what they're actually worth.
Ooh,
No, but I mean, I think it comes back to the point that you guys are making is if the idea is I'm selling Fred Warner and I'm having to try and replace him, trying to lock myself into replacing a player like that at that pick range is a low odds position to take. So I think it's going to be one of those more like I'm using your roster just because you have the picks or something like this to work. So it would be something like if it was Washington's first, Jalen Phillips, and maybe like a bench player or something like that, trying to structure a deal that way where I'm taking a very late first as it looks, a player who's kind of back end of the first right now, and then like kind of a third round developmental linebacker. So the player that comes to my mind, because he was one of mine, was Micah Kaiser, third round linebacker who had to sit on my roster for a couple of years before he actually started cracking in the league and scoring some points. Something like that, where it's a not quite dart throw, but kind of a dart throw, a pick, and then a undervalued defensive asset for a guy like Warner. I think that's the kind of deal that gets something like that done. All of us would like to say, yeah, no, in a heartbeat, let me give the Patriots first in 22, and that gets me Fred Warner. That might get it done. I doubt it does. I think anyone in this situation realizes that if you're taking shots, expecting to hit starters at the back end of the first round here and expecting a high hit rate, you haven't been paying attention.
I mean, I literally traded Fred Warner and drafted Willie Gay with the pick that I got off him. So
that is why I used the example.
That right there shows you how shitty it feels to try and do that. I mean, I got more for Warner than just that first, but
right, because I was the one that bought Warner.
Mm-hmm. So like I was going to take Murray with that pick. And Murray's on IR, although he did have a very productive rookie year. Murray also got drafted or got picked right before that.
Oh, did he? I had already sent you the pick, though.
Yeah, you had. But I was targeting Murray with that pick, and then he got sniped, and I had to back up to Willie Gay, which I thought was going to be fine because it's a great position to have in Kansas City. But he just hasn't gotten it for whatever reason. I've honestly I've come to the acceptance that it's really hard to try and figure out what the fuck teams are going to do with linebackers.
Yeah.
Because like Kenny Young on my roster has looked real good in Los Angeles for that Rams team. They have really nobody else on that in that linebacking core that they've trusted to play and has played as well as Kenny Young. Kenny Young just got flipped with a 7th for a 2024 6th.
That's right. He's going to be a Bronco, and they're going to rely on Troy Reeder in LA.
Yeah, so like
he's been disappointing for what they expected of him, I think, is what happened there.
I mean, the issue with that though is Troy Reeder fucking sucks.
I mean, apparently not enough.
Every Rams linebacker sucks.
That was the tone of it. Because Troy Reeder fucking sucks, dude.
He does.
He just fucking sucks.
I mean, I'm not complaining because I still have a starting linebacker, and he'll play right next to Strand, and it'll be weird for me because like one of them will play and the other one won't, and it's basically what has been going on with my roster. But
and Denver just got Weatherly as well. They're so destroyed on defense this year. It's ridiculous.
Weatherly's probably just going to end up retiring. He's probably.
I now own 3 Denver linebackers.
How does that make you feel?
As long as they keep producing like they have, I think I'll be okay. I'll take the random Malik Reed sack games, and I'll take Kenny Young being 12-ish points a game.
Right.
So I think it's fair to say anybody with a positive record is our buyers this year.
Yeah.
If they have any picks to give up.
I mean, there's some teams in there with positive records I think should still be selling.
Yeah.
Okay. Who would those be then?
Giants to an extent, kind of. Fuck it, Rams might as well. He'll win
I
that
don't-
division without.
Yeah, but I don't think they should sell. Like,
No.
I
Make the
think they
playoffs.
should. I think they should slight sell. Like they shouldn't fucking fire sale their team, but like if they can move some of those pieces for like younger dudes, I don't see an issue with that.
I mean, but it's like when you look at the extremely productive players, especially on offense, like they're all young already.
Mm-hmm.
So like, who are you talking about? Like the C.J. Mosley, Demario Davises, like that, those type of names.
Yeah, maybe JPP probably. Honestly, both the guys he got from me probably try and flip those dudes. I like Tanyan, but I'm concerned about him without Rodgers.
I like Bob Tonyan just for the value in the contract. Just hold on.
I do too, but like,
mean-
what happens? Does Jordan Love throw to him like Aaron does?
Aaron doesn't throw to him anymore either.
He kind of does. He still gets a couple. Like he's got a couple games in here with 4, 5, 7 targets. He's
He's
got
on.
that fun fucking 7 target, 2 receptions, 8 yards game.
He's certainly like the upper echelon tight end, and like don't get me wrong, like that's a pretty low bar right now.
Yeah.
But it is an appreciated bar that he is hitting.
Yeah.
So I don't see like the change of quarterback making him terrible. Like the Saints tight ends, or at least Johnson is somewhat productive. I mean, boom bust productive. Even when they switched quarterbacks to somebody that I don't know is Winston better than Love?
I don't know.
Jameis?
Probably, maybe.
Most likely, yeah.
We have nothing to know about
Maybe.
Jordan Love as a quarterback, so it's
Right.
hard to gauge that one.
Right. But like,
I
I
think
think
Go ahead.
Tanyan's in like the top 20. So like I think with that contract, that value, like he's probably somebody you hold on to. But I agree with like the JPP
yeah.
linebackers that we stated. Like it's pretty nice that like he does already have like some good quality young defenders.
Yeah.
I mean, Jabril Cox, it'd be nice if he was a little bit more productive, but he's good.
Yeah, I think that he should not go forward trying to rely on Case Keenum. Baker is definitely going to be out for a lot longer than people think, if not the season. And I don't think Case does enough for his team to make it worth hanging on.
I think having that contract, you just kind of roll the dice.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, like, in the situation you're in, wouldn't you rather deal Case for
No.
you know, like an early second or a first or something like that?
Oh, nobody's paying that for Case Keenum.
Well, no,
I
I'm
would-
just saying, like, wouldn't you try to get the highest pick possible for a guy that's not going to be
No.
anywhere near helpful next year for you?
I would win a couple bucks taking that division with my mediocre 7 to 10 and on good days 12 to 15 points from my backup quarterback because you still have the established starter on that same offense. Probably want to get rid of the Dwayne Haskins, but that's a pipe dream, and then you just cut him next year when like he's the smallest burden to you.
Yeah.
But no,
Or
I wouldn't deal Case Keenum. I would enjoy that. I would probably go try to find like whatever backup quarterbacks still on free agency, maybe pick them up too, if Baker finally gets like the IR designation.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess in my opinion, the Niners, the Niners, Cards, and Seahawks are just not good enough to catch up that 2-game lead, regardless of what happens.
I agree, but the compensation for a backup quarterback that like, you know, like, yeah, I agree. What's he going to get? Like a third for him? Like that's insignificant value when you could just win a division and like, solidify your win of the division. Like, I don't think 1 3rd-round pick is that important.
And realistically, who are you trading him to in the next 2 weeks?
Right.
Like the only team I see that could legitimately use Case Keenum as their starting quarterback that's a contender is the Bengals.
And we've seen his lovely trades recently, so he may get more than a third out of him.
Maybe. Another
Who
team that I
knows?
feel is. Oh, go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, who knows? I mean, like you said, it's kind of the double-edged sword. The way that we're kind of falling out right now, there are probably about 16 to 18 teams who actually want a quarterback as things stand, because the quarterback gets some points. The quarterback's going to help them win. So you take a league of 32 and say 20 of them in our format are fantasy viable. Your supply is already exceeding your demand. Now you're taking guys like Case Keenum, in my case, Tyrod Taylor, people like that who are 1-year rentals, who are going to help score points for people, and you already have a market that's flooded, and you're trying to add to that market. So, and especially on the 1-year deal. So, if Case Keenum got a third, I think you take that and celebrate. If you got sent a rookie corner, again, he won't do it, but like Trayvon Diggs for Case Keenum, I think would be an overpay at this point.
Eagles would never do that.
I know he wouldn't,
He'll
but that's the
never do
point.
it.
Is that would be an overpay? Is a corner who, again, at best, is a third-round pick because of the comp pick piece of this, and in most cases for the draft, won't get taken until that early third window as it is. So you're talking about that being the best case, and that might be an overpay for Case Keenum. So if that's what you're getting back, then like I said, just roll the points, get the extra extensions that come with winning your division, and roll on to next year and build with that asset versus some of the others.
Yeah. And get a couple of bucks while you do it, or try to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just one of those situations where it's very clear who's doing what outside of like 3 to 5 teams, but the NFC is so much clearer than the AFC.
Then let's go around and help these winning teams buy some players.
Right.
Sounds good. So let's start with the AFC and maybe just go and pick a team with a player that you think needs to get moved before the deadline. Let's kind of just go. You can either go a couple on the same team, or you can just go a singular player. Matt, I don't think you've had a chance to start yet. Why don't you go ahead and go first?
Derek fucking Henry shouldn't be on this Jags team ever play another game for this fucking Jags team. Send him somewhere for something of a large quantity.
Well, he was here for like 10 seconds the other day.
Like I don't see. Like Derek Henry is looking at having just 3 years now of just massive usage.
Yeah.
By the time
again.
by the time this Jags team is ready to utilize Derek Henry is either going to have come out as being literally superhuman and not having to worry about ligament injuries and wear and tear on his body because he's literally just a god man, or he will be suffering from being used to an extreme amount for an NFL running back.
Are you saying
I don't think he'll be?
Are you saying he's either going to be Adrian Peterson or DeMarco Murray?
I don't think he'll be at either of those extremes. But I don't think he has 5 straight 2,000 rushing yards.
Hey, 17-game season. You never know now.
Dude,
Yeah, I forget what he's on pace for right now, but I think it's something like 500 touches or something for 2021-2022 season. It's like, dear God.
I'm no longer gonna doubt him. I'm gonna be like every year redraft and everything. Like I'm a buyer of him until I see him fall off a cliff.
Dude, he's gonna be so good, and then he's literally going to explode like a blown tire.
Yeah, he's on pace for 459 carries.
Yep.
Until
the day he explodes, I will say.
Yeah,
Yes,
according to one source here, it's trajectory for 2,200 rushing yards on 459 carries and 2,600 plus scrimmage yards on 504 total carries.
So what's a realistic value for him in this league? At
he's
$10.9 million.
100% worth every first you have.
Yeah.
Is he 2? Is he 3?
like-
I don't think
he's
he's
past
three.
two weights.
You mean like 102?
No, how many firsts?
I think
Oh.
he's worth probably like one of those first offensive skill position players, another first on top of that, and some other offense. Like basically what Mike said Fred Warner is, with the like late first defensive player, a buildable asset on defense, and then like that late first. I think
Oh.
Derrick Henry is like a top end offensive rookie talent, another first, and then like another usable offensive player easily. That has to, they have to be young.
So he's
So
roughly
so-
2 firsts.
2 first minimum.
I'd say like
Two and a
well,
half, 3.
you have to do 2.5, 3, and you have to take into account that one of those first has to be in like the top 6.
Like top, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
He's
gonna say
just-
top 10.
He's one of the like few players that's like market to like somewhat market value and still like.
I think he's
demanding
below
multiple.
market value. Like for
Yeah.
what he does, I think he's below.
I don't disagree with you, but he's like more like he's not Austin Eckler price, and that's what
Yeah.
I'm like. He's not like super price controlled, like extremely cheap. He's one of the few guys that's like $10+ million, but still also worth like an absurd amount.
Is he going to be holdout eligible in the offseason?
Absolutely, unless he gets extended, because he'll click down
Which-
to 2, and then he'll be holdout eligible.
Which he'll be holdout eligible because of the owner.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Hey.
unless he gets moved.
So I have
you
one.
know, what, Pro Bowl.
Oh yeah, what's the deal with that again?
I gotta look at the rules here. It's a good reminder for everybody. So, as mentioned last year, we added the concept of a Pro Bowl so that players who performed exceedingly well could find ways to get their contracts upped in the offseason beyond just the holdout stuff that we have. So, after the final week of the playoffs, the top players at each position in each conference will be designated as Pro Bowl players. The 2 resulting rosters will be pitted against one another for the final week of the NFL season. Number of players designated, it goes on and says who's designated. Once designated as such, if a Pro Bowl player is extended at any point prior to the following season's Pro Bowl selection, the new salary will be determined by comparing the result of the normal extension calculation and the result of the renegotiation process. Whatever salary is greater between the 2 processes will be assigned. So, what does that mean? Let's
So he
use
goes
Austin
to-
Eckler as an example. So, Austin Eckler right now for me costs $712,000. If I try and just straight extend him, I'm less than $1 million in terms of paying him. He would have made the Pro Bowl last year, which meant if I tried to extend him after he made the Pro Bowl, I would have to pay him in line with, let me pull this up now. I
Number
think it
2.
was the running back 5,
Last year, yeah.
running back 10. So running back 10 last year made $12.1 million. So it takes a player like Eckler, who is locked in at a low price point, and if he makes the Pro Bowl, guess what? Your leverage is gone, buddy.
I mean, is that any year or is that just 2 years or less?
No, so basically
any
it would
year.
go until the following Pro Bowl. So if he missed the Pro Bowl the following year, then I could extend him at his normal dollar
At his
value
$1 million,
without
right?
getting killed there. Yeah.
I gotcha.
The
So that
holdout
means
thing
that-
is specific to 2 years.
I gotcha. So that means Derrick Henry then would go up to McCaffrey pricing of like $29 million.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Unless
This
he's
is the first year
extended
for the Pro
between
Bowl.
now and the Pro Bowl.
Yeah,
Good
so
luck,
it's kind of
Titans.
vital. Like, friendly reminder: if you have a guy like this, it's the first year of the Pro Bowl. Get your contract extensions in early, or else it's going to be painful.
So then, what does his value go down to if he's $29 million?
Oh, he's
A
not
first.
worth anything.
Yeah, he fucking nukes his value, and you're looking at DeAndre Hopkins.
Or yeah,
So,
or
like,
he's-
yeah.
He nukes it to
contract.
nuke status.
All right, so
that
I
was a
have
good play, Matt.
a team in
RJ.
the AFC.
Go for it.
Okay.
2 players on one team. It's
Yep.
the Chiefs. Dalton Schultz and Cedric Wilson. Both
Interesting.
trade extension eligible. and great value right now. Schultz is I don't know about value. You're probably going to have to give a really nice pick and use a trade extension on him.
Yeah, that's a
Wilson,
high second.
no, that higher than
You don't
that.
think so?
Higher than that.
Wait, it has to be. He can't extend him. He tags him, and then he gets him for another year, and that's it.
Right.
And then you lose him for a third.
He said a second, so I would say higher than a second value.
Yeah, but why would somebody pay a second for that when they could just wait a year and sign him?
Well, if I pay a second for Dalton Schultz now, then I can trade extend him at basically his current value.
Yeah.
Right. So if I was the seller on Schultz, I would want more than a second.
But the problem is it's a ticking time bomb. So
Yeah.
Right.
if you don't get him out of there before the next set of extensions come in, then this year value starts being the extension point or the renegotiation point for him, then he immediately loses 50% of his value because you're renegotiating him off of this year's performance and not last year's performance.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But it's a double-edged sword because like somebody has to use a trade extension, but like also it's like that's not the selling person needs to get the value that's like requisite with what they're selling. And I don't know if a second gets it done with him.
But he eventually just loses Dalton Schultz, or he tags him repeatedly, and he's no longer worth the money he's being paid.
No, I understand that, but like you're also not like by lowballing the person or giving them less value because of that. It's not really enticing them to sell.
Oh, I don't think you need to lowball him. I just think like a second is great because that's a far better pick than what you'd get from eventually having to let him walk.
No, I agree in that sense. I just don't know if a second is. I think he's almost worth, just because of how valuable the tight end is, especially this year. There's only 10 of them, 11 of them that are even worth realistically rostering.
Right. So I will agree with you in the Dalton Schultz before week 8 goes live, or week 9 in this case, based off the fact that he has the bye. Dalton Schultz, before he starts his 8th game of the season, is worth a first-round pick. Dalton Schultz, the minute he starts his 8th game of the season, drops below second-round pick in value for me.
Completely agree.
The second-round pick could be a last chick at the bar. It's closing time.
Right.
You either pick this or you go home alone.
Because when you extend him, he'll renegotiate because he was a rookie. Correct?
Correct.
And then because he's on a ridiculous pace for the last 8 games, he will be paid as the 7th best or 6th best or however he finishes average wise after game 8.
So again, this is why we're timing this conversation now, because of that. Dalton Schultz isn't the only exploding value like this.
Right.
It's if the move gets done, both the person acquiring Schultz and the person selling Schultz get more value out of trying to move him now.
Sure.
Whereas if it's done afterwards, everyone loses value in the conversation. And if it goes down to having to franchise tag him in the offseason, I think back to, and I think this
if he gets franchise tagged, he's not worth anything.
But then, think back to, I think it was 2 years ago, Austin Hooper. It was old Seahawks who had him. Was on, I think, a $500,000 contract. I was trying to trade for it at the time so I could trade extend him before, everything kicked in. So he wouldn't trade him and ended up franchising him, and that's exactly what happened. He went from being a huge value and worth second plus, maybe even a first in value, to now an albatross contract that someone's got to pay to get rid of.
Well, that's where he burned himself because
Right.
he wanted a first and he declined countless second offers of seconds, which a lot of us talked about on a trade on a podcast back then.
Right. If I've got someone like Schultz and if I'm Chiefs and I'm realizing I'm not going to make this happen this year, I'm kind of looking along 2 paths. One, what can I add Schultz to Miles Sanders and get for myself long term? Again, this is just hypothetical, but say Rams decided to try and solidify himself a little bit. would Rams give DeAndre Swift for Miles Sanders and Austin Hooper? Not Austin Hooper, I'm sorry, Freudian slip. Dalton Schultz.
And then you have the Philly stack of running backs on the Rams.
But you actually have your tight end.
Don't shake your head, Bill. You know that's appealing.
Yeah, sure.
So again, it's just spitballing. It's something like that. He doesn't need that at the receiver position because he's got AJ Brown or Justin Jefferson. But from a quarterback position, does he take Schultz and Daniel Jones and try and get into the Justin Fields conversation, or the Trey Lance conversation? You either need to trade him straight up, in which case he's an exploding value and tough to get that first for, or you have to add him into a player to get into the next thing. And I know Matt's losing his mind. He's like, "Why are you giving Chris ideas?"
It's not even close.
Disregard that comment. Nobody even think you're going to send an offer for Trey Lance. Now let's proceed.
I mean, feel free to send offers. RJ loves getting offers, especially for Trey Lance.
You're gonna get him to turn off his fucking trade notification emails, Mike.
Oh my god. No, I don't know.
That's my takeaway here. Is Trey Lance is on the block. Anyways,
and what you need to take more into account though is that Chris doesn't want a quarterback at all.
Yeah.
I've tried.
I'm happy that he doesn't want a quarterback.
It's very entertaining. I quite enjoy watching his games at the start of Bears games and just watching the quarterback points dip into the negatives and then eventually climb back up to like 4 or 5 points. Just like, yes.
Oh.
Anyways, all right. So that goes through Chiefs and it goes through the Jags. Bill, any other AFC teams that are selling that you want to highlight a piece or two on, or?
I mean,
I thought we were doing buyers.
Yeah.
No, we're
doing
picking
sellers.
out
We're
stuff
looking at
for buyers.
who should
Oh,
sell.
okay.
Yeah. Honestly, like it makes me so angry because of what I just did, but like I have to be a seller at this point. Like in certain capacities, like the Broncos has to sell, right? Like they don't necessarily have to sell Mahomes or Kelsey or anything like that, but like there are pieces there that are sellable that I have no use for because my team shit the bed.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, generally speaking, there are pieces I need to let go. And it's just a matter of what, well, like personally, like outside of like offensively, I don't really have pieces like other than big names. Like I personally feel like Freeman and Murray hold value because they are the guys in Baltimore. Do they hold great value? No. Are they worth anything on my team right now? Fuck no.
No, but I think they're worth more than you paid for them.
Yeah, I agree. It's just getting a competing team to actually agree to that. But like I don't have a need for Mike Purcell. I can get rid of him. I don't have a need for really any one of the linebackers, but I need them because I have to have a roster. I could move any corner. Like my team
I'd say hold on to the Titans linebackers. That's $4 million for all of the inside linebackers, and
well, that's this year. Evans goes to like 10
Brown.
million next year.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, like my team outside of like the big names is not helpful, and I'm wondering. Like personally, I'm wondering how much trying to build around Mahomes has actually impacted that. But that's for off-season figuring that shit out. But yeah,
that's future Bill's problem.
Right, that's future Bill's problem exactly. But yeah, I mean honestly, like there are pieces I just don't need, and I would honestly say the same thing with Raiders. The only like me and Raiders had a conversation yesterday. We're both basically looking at either ending 8-9 or 9-8.
What you really got screwed on is Tony Jones going on IR
God,
because he
yeah,
would have
that
been a nice asset to trade
yeah,
extend, but now you can't
yeah,
even extend him.
yeah. It's awful, and it's just one of those things. Like Michael Carter is like the only running back I care about holding on to because I finally have a rookie contract worth holding. But it's just one of those things. My team just needs to be rebuilt a little bit, but more than likely, I'm in a situation where that rebuild starts in the off season more than trade deadline.
Yeah.
But also that I think Raiders as well, just generally speaking, because we're just right in the middle. We're both going to miss the playoffs because we're just not going to end well. But what's he going to move? Like
Randall
he,
Cobb.
I mean, I
That's it.
guess I would I would honestly look at maybe moving Zach Pascal as well.
Mhm.
Just
Mo Alley Cox.
yeah.
Who else?
He doesn't have a whole lot of like 1 year guys.
No,
Probably.
the challenge you get into here, and it's the Raiders, it's the Jets, it's the Cardinals, it's the guys that they need to start the process of breaking up a couple assets.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers, if he could go off, this team should go.
Yeah.
Again, the number of suitors for them in terms of a contract that size, that
Not
could benefit
many.
from a player like
Minimal.
Rodgers right now and pay
Yeah.
what needs to be paid is probably like 2 or 3 teams. So
Yeah.
you need to find the right buyer for it. But it's okay. I'm turning Aaron Rodgers into. I already have Jordan Love, so I've got the heir apparent, so I'll hang on to that. So can I turn it into a first round pick and then 2 other startable players next year?
Possibly, if you have someone that believes in Rodgers is going to be around for another 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's you're not saying okay, 3 firsts for Rodgers or 2 firsts for Rodgers. I don't think that's the way it gets done, especially with a $33 million contract. What you have to do is do something like, and I would have to do a little bit of searching to see if I can find a deal that makes sense for this.
Giants.
But like for example, if the Dolphins said, "Hey, help me shed Cam Newton's contract," Jalen Hurts is outscoring Rodgers, so probably wouldn't do that. But something like Cam Newton and I can't even think of a good situation there. But big contract and then 2 or 3 valuable pieces so that he gets something for the rebuild, and you have to do something to make the cap space get there in the first place. And I think that's what's got to get done for these guys who are 25 million plus, who are on less than 2-win teams. You want a couple pieces to rebuild for it, but this is not normal dynasty. You are not getting 3 first-round picks for DeAndre Hopkins or Devontae Adams or Aaron Rodgers. That's just not the way this works.
Right.
You're going to need to take. You're going to have to take salary into account. So if you're taking salary into account, if you don't take back bad salary, then you're not going to get the assets you need for the rebuild. Full stop.
Who's got Ben?
The Colts. So
never mind. No, but like, even like for the Raiders, I know like running backs are insanely hard to find in this league most years, but sell James Conner. The dude's got crazy value right now, I think, across the board, and he's never going to have it again, I don't think. Like, this is the best value he's had since he was like, the first year he took over for Lev Bell in Pittsburgh.
He was crazy valuable back then.
Yeah. But he's clearly the guy in Arizona. But yeah, I would move him. I would try to move him. You could easily get a first out of that.
I don't know about that.
You don't think so? You don't think a contender would move 20 to 32 somewhere in there?
Mm-mm.
No.
He's in my opinion, he's like second, maybe a third, probably a second.
I mean,
I think
salary,
the Raiders is unhappy with an offer of a third and probably takes a second.
Yeah, but like we were just talking about salary, right? Didn't Mixon just get moved for like 2 firsts at $22 million? They're not the
Mixon.
same player, obviously, but
We
Mixon's
didn't
also
tell-
incredibly injury prone.
We didn't tell them to make that trade.
No,
Let's see here.
I'm
Mixon
taking
did it.
4 first offers for Najee Harris.
actually
Sometimes
probably
trades
worth it.
just happen that are kind of weird.
right. But yeah, I mean, he's got pieces he can move. Connor, Jaquiski Tart, if somebody needs a safety for a year due to injury or whatever. But like, we're just right in the middle there.
The issue you run into with guys like Tart is if you start doing your research, you see he's getting phased out of the defense he plays in.
But for who? Like, what is that? Like Tanafanu or whatever his name is?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
I mean, I have an easy fix for that. Just don't do the research. Trade
Yeah.
for the points.
All right.
But
So let's
what-
shift gears here from things that people should be selling to things that people need to be buying. Matt, what do you think the Bengals need to buy?
A quarterback. Fucking somebody that plays quarterback. And not in that wheelhouse of insanity of saying the same thing over and over again. Probably a safety or linebacker, or help at wide receiver. Holy fuck! What happened to his wide receivers?
he sold off his team to me,
Yeah, he
needs
sold
help
off
at
2
wide
guys.
receiver.
Yeah, he needs
which
help
was
at
his
wide
whole
receiver bad.
team.
What the fuck?
For what? Hawkinson?
Hawkinson,
Yeah, that was
Sammy Watkins, and
that was a
AB.
trade.
And
That
Simmons.
was a trade.
So again, that was a redistribution of assets. But I think, quarterback's the main thing for Bengals. Looking at Ravens.
Ravens
Really?
needs.
Thinking linebacker here?
I don't think Ravens needs to make
He's
much
pretty
of a
set.
move. The
Like-
issue with the AFC teams is like one of the 4 or 2 of the 4 between Ravens, Dolphins, Patriots, Jets, and kind of Bills. But I give Bills the upper hand of winning that division.
Mhm.
2 of them are going to be out.
Yeah.
And
Did
one of those is absolutely an AFC East team. Just due to the fact that they have to play each other. So
Yeah.
Ravens is having to identify whether or not he can catch up to those guys and squeeze into a playoff spot. But at the same time, do you want to make a move like that to try and squeeze into a wild card playoff spot when it's not really putting you in a position to be winning money?
I
but
would
he-
when I have
he needs
Leonard
a wide
Fournette,
receiver.
James Robinson, and
Yeah.
DJ
Yeah.
Moore. He needs a linebacker because Sherwood tore his Achilles.
Yeah, he just traded for him.
hmm
Yeah, I don't know. I think he needs a wide receiver. Galladay's not enough. Van Jefferson is too up and down, and all he really has is DJ Moore. He needs a secondary wide receiver.
I don't know
And-
that wide receiver core looks a lot better than the guy beating him in his division. So I wouldn't be too worried.
Well,
about
yeah,
that.
I'm just talking like what does it look like he could use to like boost it? Because he's not necessarily competing against the Bengals. He's competing against the AFC East.
I know.
So like I don't know. It's
Well,
It's-
maybe
it's
he
still
could be
good.
competing against the Bengals to win that division.
Mhm.
I mean, all it takes is them staying with winning games, and then who won the first matchup?
Bengals, Ravens.
So it comes
Bengals
down
won
to
the first one.
assuming they win the same amount of games and they Ravens win, they split the season series and they both end up with the same fucking division, whatever.
Mhm.
Then it comes down to points for, and I think the Bengals is going to be scoring fewer points rest of season than he was prior. So I mean, adding a wide receiver and a linebacker could shrink that 68 point gap.
Yeah. All right, let's see here.
All right, so shifting gears to another team. What do we think the Patriots have left to do here? So they're now sitting on their 22nd first, the Ravens 22nd first, and the Ravens 23 first to try and fill out this roster. It seems like he's not going to go for the big ticket option, which is probably the better thing to do, but rather try and fill in a couple of pieces around here. So if you were going shopping with 3 mid to late first round picks, saying I'm not going to try and get like a number one in any offensive position or well-known guy at defense, who are you targeting?
He needs a better quarterback, and he needs a replacement for Dawson Knox.
He could go after Rodgers pretty easily, actually.
Mhm. I would say a running back is probably one of the higher priorities.
Yeah.
Fill in depth at wide receiver, but you would probably find somebody to give you a return, like somebody like Wilson that I highlighted on the Chiefs for far less than a first, just to kind of like fill in depth, give you a couple more points.
He could use a secondary defensive end there too.
I think the concern over Dawson Knox is a little much.
I mean, he won't be out
Or-
for the season. He's going to be out for a couple weeks, though.
Yeah, it'll be out for
Just enough to go
3
past
weeks.
the deadline.
Right. But I don't hate the idea of like Matt. My problem is I don't know of a tight end other than Kittle that's like comparable, like when you consider contract as far as value.
No, he'd have to go all in at the position. He'd have to move Knox and a couple picks to get somebody better, probably.
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't think there is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, Dawson with Knox exploding with Allen this year. There really isn't like a better option out there.
Like in
What
our
about-
league, it's
Yeah.
I'm not
Kittle and
sure who
Knox
has
and
him. What about Gesicki?
High.
yeah.
Oh,
no.
I don't know who has him. I was just
Right.
saying, like,
The
that's
issue with
an
Gesicki is he gets his 5th-year option next year, so his contract goes whoop.
But that's a later problem, right? As we've been saying tonight, that's a later problem.
I mean, yeah, but I don't. What does
He-
Patriots come to the table to get the current number 3 tight end in the league?
What if Patriots sent Dawson Knox for Dalton Schultz and Cedric Wilson?
I would probably want Dawson Knox out of that.
Yeah, you could probably do that and then package a pair of firsts and like Minshew and random shit for Rodgers and one of the mediocre-ish linebackers that Raiders has on 1 years.
You know what? So this team has been like very up and down with what they're trying to do a little bit. He could go after Dallas Goedert on the Browns.
That's not a bad idea.
You know, it's a huge salary increase, but I mean, it's not like he doesn't have the cap room for it.
Right, it comes down to if he's got to split that cap room between a quarterback, a running back, a tight end, and a couple of these things, that becomes a challenge. I like that the Schultz swap idea. I was actually trying to think in terms of, again, Colts won't do it, but what would he have to add to Knox to get to Pitts?
Can you re-list off
Everything.
all of those firsts and other picks that he has?
Again,
all of those
all
one.
of the everything.
plus ones that we haven't been given yet.
Yeah.
What
I
about
don't-
going to Chris for Hawkinson?
Repeat the statement I just made.
Hey, you never know, man.
You got
Knox is-
him to
Knox
give
is
up
pretty
Kelsey and Mike Williams for 1.5 players.
good. He did that to himself. I didn't put any legwork into that deal.
Simply stating.
No, but what I'm saying is like there are options. It's really just a matter of like who's willing to move these pieces. You know, Colts has been known to make moves. You know, it's just a matter of if they match what he's willing to do and what he wants to do.
I don't see
But-
that happening.
But yeah, there's no way he does Pitts. There's no way. At all.
Yeah, Knox is honestly like even with the broken hand, like I'm looking at the like tight ends right now, and I don't see one that. No, like you're gonna have to give up like whoever the tight end is plus to get Knox.
Tommy
in my
Tremble from
opinion.
the Lions.
I was looking at that. Value's there.
No, I mean, does anybody have two? Like, does anyone own two viable tight ends?
Chicago.
I have Eric Ebron and Jawan Johnson.
Chicago has
Cook and
Higbee
Higbee.
at 13 and a Cook at 15 for points per game.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one. That'll be an interesting dive for him, but that could be something to focus on for sure.
I think you just wait it out and you find like a lesser tight end. You buy a Mo Alley Cox from Las Vegas for a third or a second or something
Yeah,
like that.
I mean you could just full band-aid your team with a Los Angeles roster mesh of here, take all of my first, give me a Rodgers, Mo Alley, Cox, and let's pick out one of these dog shit linebackers. How about Jalen Reeves Maben? There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
So it's something interesting here. I'm looking at this while we're in the East. What does the Bills need to do to hold off the Dolphins now that Dak Prescott may be hurt and Joe Flacco is the starting quarterback of the Jets?
What he's always needed to do: buy more tight ends and more running backs.
Yeah.
Again, we'll see. I know I'm going to laugh at for saying this, but hey, Penny's back from IR, so maybe that'll help him.
Yeah. Oh, IR violation. Great. Oh man. But yeah, I mean, the AFC, it's just kind of like a jumbled mess. Like, I would love to like say it's so clear what needs done, but it's really just kind of a fight for the top couple seeds here. It looks like to me.
I think we do get some fun scheduling stuff too. Like oh no, I don't play the Bills. Damn.
Well, this is going to be fun. Now, staying over the NFC here. Let's come to the favorite division in all of the NFC North. Right now, if results hold, the Bears and the Packers will be tied at 8-3, behind me at 11-0. Both these teams are probably making the playoffs as wild cards. That said, both these teams are going to be starting to ramp up because neither one of these are going to let me rest on my laurels the last 5 games. They're both coming for the division if they can get it, let alone shot at me in the playoffs. So that being said, if we're talking about the Packers or the Bears, what do you see as an add on either one of these? Because if there's one thing Jeremy needs, it's more advice.
Well, you need a linebacker or you need a tight end, but let me check out Packers and Bears.
Packers needs to figure out what he wants to do at running back, depending on how long Chubb is out for.
He's fine. Ty Johnson did all right yesterday. Jamal Williams is doing just fine.
Yeah, but is just fine enough to do what he's trying to do?
Yeah.
Look at the rest of the NFC.
Well, okay.
I think the man's safe in his wild card spot.
I think I think that roster is actually pretty good. Maybe add
a safety.
Safety or linebacker, but not a huge necessity.
Yeah. Like nothing really. Like unless injury hits in the next couple weeks, he should be fine.
And I mean, let's not get into what's it. The NFC playoffs are basically set.
Yeah.
The 7 teams.
Yeah.
Vikings, Packers, Bears, Falcons, Bucks, Washington football team, and Rams. Barring something crazy, that's going to be the NFC playoff in some form or order. Now the question is what order that falls in. So it becomes for the NFC less about do I have the roster to make the playoffs and more of do I have the roster that's going to give me a chance to either make the upset or make a run when I get there? So with that in mind, I think you got to look at some of the players on Packers like Paris Campbell or Chubb or situations like that where, look, Nick Chubb's a hell of a player. I have no idea what his timetable return is. If he's going to be back in time for the playoffs, which I think he is,
Yeah.
you're rolling. If not, do you put him and Paris Campbell and say, go after Derrick Henry? Which terrifies me. And Jeremy's probably sending this offer right now. I can't believe it left my lips. If
I don't-
this happens, I'm going to be checking for commissioner collusion. But
I don't think Jags does
days.
that
I don't think Jags does that.
because the issue you run into there is Chubb hits his 5th-year option next year.
That's,
Oh, I thought it was a login issue.
yeah, I was definitely going to
Also
hold
that.
back on that, but I was going to say he's not going to do it because he's not going to see it.
True. Very true.
But I don't know. I mean, you could do a whole lot of stuff with both of these teams, and you would, depending on the move, you could severely hurt the teams, or you could really make them pretty powerful.
I think Jeremy may have missed out with his traveling for work on moving Chubb for Zeke plus.
Probably.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have a high-profile running back to make that move with?
Not really.
Because I mean, like, Chubb is still young enough to be like a very desirable asset, regardless of like having to pay him more.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
You could try and talk me into DeAndre Swift in some way.
I mean,
That's
talk you into. He's amazing.
No, I
That's-
mean like talking me as the Rams into moving DeAndre
Okay, yeah,
Swift.
that's true.
Oh,
Chubb.
I gotcha.
I
gotcha.
don't think Rams does that, but I don't
No.
think it's I think that's something that you approach like you're in the right player idea, but I don't think that's necessarily the right player.
I mean, if the Seahawks, nope. I mean, you could try for Chase Edmonds, but that's not enough of a kick, I don't think.
Yeah, and you don't move Chubb for Chase Edmonds.
No.
I'm looking for guys that like you could try and talk somebody into a 1-for-1 type deal, or like a like Chubb for a player plus, and not like
What
a
about
major down.
given he's not going to do anything with this? What about Chubb for Chuba and Javante from the Giants?
you want to move Javante for that?
Yeah, no.
Well, no, I'm not saying that would be it, but like,
Yeah.
would that be enough
It's-
to start a conversation?
No.
So again, I think you've got the right framework. It's trying to keep it is a young, reset the clock running back for a well-established stud. I think that's a good way to frame this. The question then becomes, like you said, who's the person that he's working with for this, and to try and get a running back, that's really tough to do right now.
Yeah.
I'm diving through rosters right now, and
Yeah, same.
I mean, just looking at like the top 30 running backs, like you're looking for a team that either can eat Chubb being out for an extended period of time and has 2 running backs, or is somebody that has a good running back that they'd be fine moving for Chubb. And the issue arises when like Mike here has 2 top 5 running backs. He's not moving Jonathan Taylor or Austin Eckler for Chubb. I have Najee and Antonio Gibson at 5 and 14 respectively. I'm not moving either of those for Chubb unless it's like Gibson, and I don't think you move Chubb for Gibson with the way Gibson's been playing with that injury.
Yeah.
Dallas,
You've got
Darnell Taylor, or Daryl Taylor,
Darrell Henderson.
Henderson.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, maybe, but also you're not resetting the clock there at all. You're just like, okay, I'm buying in the fact that Cam Akers is out for the year, and I'm trying to like really, really lean into this. And if you're doing that, why not go for somebody like James Robinson,
Yeah,
who
honestly,
has
like
longer term value?
yeah, honestly, the only real like non-competitive option, like, or not non-competitive, the only team not competing that has any viable option is the Jags with Derrick Henry.
yeah.
I think
That's it.
Baltimore could be talked into moving Robinson for Chubb in the right situation, because I think he can still squeeze into a playoff spot there without Robinson. But I also think he's smart enough to realize like the value for Chubb is better than it is for Robinson.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just double checking the bylaws here. So, division winners get $20 a piece. Third place gets $75. Runner up gets $175 in the league format. So, if Raven sneaks in as a wild card, let's say he's the second wild card, just for shits and giggles here. He would play, if the season ended today, either the Bengals or the Texans. I mean, if you're playing one of those teams, you probably need James Robinson's points if you're going to have a chance, or Chubb to be back and fully operational. So,
But Chubb should be back by the playoffs. Like, it's Kareem Hunt that has the long-term injury.
Yeah.
right.
Am I
The
crazy
question
to think
is-
that Leonard Fournette should really be the target on the Ravens?
Who owns him?
The
Ravens.
Oh,
I don't think it's crazy. I think it's just that's
it's a lot of
like, why
contract
not
money.
hold Chubb at that point? Because you're basically going to be paying the same for it.
Right, and that's kind of what I mean is Jeremy would have to be selling something that he did not think he was going to get back in time for the playoffs to get moved here. So he doesn't really have any good examples. Let me see about the Bears.
Honestly, I mean, I know it's hard to make the move if you are the Bears, but I would probably try to overpay for Dearness Johnson.
So the Bears already have this Dearness Johnson.
I know, and he won't
He's
move
saying
him, but it
Green
might,
Bay
it might be
should
worth
try and
trying.
overpay for him.
Yeah, it might be worth trying to overpay to get him off the Bears.
I think Andy's smart enough to not send Johnson to his direct rival, like the
Opposition,
closest thing he
right.
can get to a rival in this
Right.
league for the year.
I mean, I'll send him JJ Taylor for Nick Chubb if he really needs that kind of help.
All right, so that takes care of that. Let's see. Then we've got. Should we look at the other the heavy hitters here? The Falcons, the Washington football team.
Definitely.
Let's do it.
Sure.
All right.
It's the worst that could happen. We find a trade for Brett to make so he doesn't have to do any work ever.
Right. Yeah. Are we looking at Falcons first or Washington?
Well, Mike needs a tight end, so somebody send him one. We're
Again,
talking about heavy
the same-
hitters in the NFC, right?
and this is kind of it's a different buyer or seller's conversation for where you look. The middle class, the AFC is still a clusterfuck. Everyone, you actually have a competition in the playoffs. Then you have the top of the AFC where you got the Bengals, the Chargers, and the Bills, and the Dolphins, who are right there within a game of each other.
Are the Bengals really top
Yeah.
of the AFC when they're
Currently, as
when
of
they're
as
mixed
of
They
up
are.
with Dolphins and
as of
Patriots?
recording.
All four teams are going
Bengals
to be in the hunt for the number one overall seed in the AFC.
I don't know. I think that's Bills. That's Bills and Chargers. That's it.
Yeah, the issue there is like right now Bengals would be behind. Bengals would be third in the AFC East right now.
Oh yeah, his points to
No, he'd be second
Fourth.
because of the win loss.
Oh,
But
Buffalo
I'm
lose?
not gonna do well.
Oh,
Wait, who did he
yeah.
lose to, or who did he
Oh.
beat?
His division one loss is undefeated. Whereas,
Oh well, that gets weird when you try and go across divisions. I was just looking at his record and points for.
I understand.
He has less points for than Dolphins.
So for me, I'm putting the Bengals, I'm putting the Bills, I'm putting the Dolphins, I'm putting the Chargers in that we're going to try and get the number one seed here. The
Mhm.
commensurate side of that is the Vikings, the Falcons, the Washington football team, where it's the number one seed is purely in sights, and that's what we're trying to work for here because that bye is going to be vitally important, especially with players with week 14 buys in the playoffs now. So getting that week 14 bye and not having to deal with players on bye in the playoffs is going to be a huge advantage. So you've got those, but then kind of the less critical bit of it is the other four teams in the NFC race. So, kind of your guys' point. If I'm the Rams, I don't care. I'm going to take whatever foul money I get from Case Keenum. I'm going to wait till Baker Mayfield's back. I'm going to do whatever I can to see if I can win 1 or 2 games in the playoffs. I'm going to get my $20 as a division winner. I'm going to get my extra extensions as a division winner, and I'm going to see if I can get lucky, win 3 games, and pick up a little bit more cash. But anything up until that point, I don't care if I finish 7-10. I'm still going to win the West, and it's just a matter of pulling an upset or 2 in the playoffs.
Yep.
That's what those 4 teams are looking at. If you look at the Falcons, myself, or Washington, it's the trying to get to that number 1 seed, and then how in God's name do we put up 300 points every single week? Because that's what it's going to take to get through the NFC.
Yeah.
If you can't do that for 3 straight weeks, you're going to get beat.
Yeah. To answer your question, for basically most of the teams, in the NFC especially, you need a tight end, or you need
Every single
more
one of
tight
them.
end depth.
Every single one of them needs a tight end. Yep.
And again, that becomes the question is, if you're Brett, when does Darren Waller come back? Like, this was kind of a out of nowhere injury that came up for the first time on Saturday. What's the extent of it? And is this something that's going to cost him a couple of games? Same thing for me. Is Kittle back next week, the week after, week 12? I've got a couple really tough games here, and I really think Kittle's contract is intensely valuable. But can I wait for Kittle to keep giving me zeros, even though that's a long term, or do I need to kind of flip him for something that makes more sense in the near term? That's going to be kind of the big part of the buyers and sellers here and what people are trying to buy. Less around kind of making and rounding out their team, but more about filling in whatever weaknesses are there and making things a little bit more robust. So I would say, looking at Brett, we already talked about the tight end situation. If I'm Brett, I'm probably thinking about trying to grab one of those low end quarterbacks who could start a couple of games here down the stretch. Kyler Murray is the truth. Let's not get that twisted. But he's taken some hits.
Yep.
And at some point in this season, Kyler Murray is probably going to sit out a couple of games. So if that's the case, right now, Brett has nothing else. He could probably go get another starter quarterback in this league. Not exactly a top-of-the-line guy, but again,
Case Keenum.
I wouldn't want to bank on Keenum because who knows if he's going to start the rest of the season or not. Do you go for, say, again, a Daniel Jones? Do you go for, again, kind of out of favor quarterbacks who you can get on the cheap? Do you go for a Sam Darnold? Do you try and get
But who are you giving back for
New
these
England
guys?
to flip out of him pretty quickly? What can you do to kind of solidify that position? So I agree. I think from a missing points perspective, if Waller's injury is long term, he would be that first person to talk to. But I think in terms of injury proofing his team, grabbing a break glass or a second point source at quarterback behind Kyler would be the next biggest thing for him, besides the never-ending search for Brett to find a D end.
He could also use another linebacker. He has a lot, but they're oddly thin.
Yeah.
I mean, he just needs Levante David to come back.
Right.
And he's missed a couple of games of Drew.
Man,
Tranquil.
that injured reserve is just.
It's so much value in there. I don't know what he feels about ETN. I am not a fan of ETN. I never have been, but flip him, get something out of him. If you don't see a future with him on your team, flip him, get rid of him. He's going to have plenty of value on a rookie contract with 3 years left.
Right. Well, the question there becomes for what?
You could get a running back, a linebacker, and probably another piece, depending on names that go with it. But
I
you
don't
could do
even
it.
I don't even think you really worry about running back
No,
because like he's
Yeah.
gonna
Jacobson
get
Kamara.
Monty back at some point, and Chicago's so depleted at running back that Monty's gonna come back and put up 30 points a game until somebody decides somebody else decides to be healthy there.
Yeah, he'll definitely take over his role again. But yeah, linebacker and D end, I suppose, and of
The
course
end
tight end.
or some type of a tight end, which there's very few of them.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think you just hope that that Waller's healthy come playoff time.
Right. So again, it's one of those never-ending things where to make it through this, you're either going to have to be really lucky or have all of your holes full at the right time. So that's going to be the big conversation here.
if you were Brett, would you consider just going after Foster Moreau for a cheap?
I wouldn't necessarily consider it cheap, but yes, I would go after him.
Mm-hmm. But that's the thing is, I feel like Moreau's probably in that range right now where if I could get it done for a third, I would, but the owner should want a second.
Mm-hmm.
But like at the end of the day, like the picks that he has are pretty much his, right? Like so they're all going to be late anyway. So
Right.
giving up a second that's between 28 and 32, who cares?
Yeah. Agreed.
I say this on the podcast, it all makes sense. I say this in trade negotiations to get rid of Antonio Brown for 4 weeks, and they tell me to fuck off.
Hey, I only told you to fuck off like 3 times.
I know. All right.
All right. That's an hour and a half of content here. If you guys didn't get enough out of this conversation, well, we can't help you. Any more than we already have. So we'll go ahead and sign off here and get to the fun part, which is trying to make some actual trades happen beyond just talking about it with you guys. So again, thanks for joining. RJ, Matt, any parting thoughts here?
No. Send me offers for my productive players because I don't want them.
Jags, if you're listening to this, trade fucking Derrick Henry, you fuck. That is all.
Bill, can you top that?
Make it understandable. Yeah. No. Pay attention to what you need. If you're contending, you know what you need at this point, and be willing to sell off the pieces that aren't going to help you.
Yeah, and if nothing else, have the conversation. It's very easy to say, this guy isn't movable. At least had the reason of he's not movable unless I get something like this. Like I would move Jonathan Taylor. It would take about 3 Brinks trucks, but I would move it. I've put him in trade offers before. Kind of get an idea of what that value is for your guys. And nobody else has to agree with you except for you.
Right.
But at least come up with here's how I got to my valuation, and I'm sticking to it. And that's fine. We'll bounce off stuff with you guys, everything of that sort. But this is the fun part of the year. Enjoy your trading, and best of luck, except if I'm playing you this